Here we are. It's the Christmas episode, everybody. We got all dressed up for you to coax you into going on YouTube, but mostly to have fun. I should have started recording before Ramin even jumped in here, because the moment I saw this is easily the worst Santa beard I've
Whatever do you mean? It's my own natural beard, which I trim once every year on my birthday, Christmas.
That material is incredible. It's like I don't even get how that was somehow like cheaper than just a regular fake beard. It's like it's like they took a part of a ghost costume and recycled it into a Santa beard. There's lots wrong with it.
Yeah, it's pure wrong. It was the only fabric I could find with such short notice.
Oh, you made it? You made it yourself?
I took some.
I thought you bought that.
I should sell this. This looks.
Who sold you that? Oh, if you made it, well, then it's delightful. It's a masterpiece. It's a real piece of work.
No, it's one level above toilet paper, and that's generous. In fact, I think toilet paper would have looked way better.
We talked, and we were like, kind of the first intuition was, should I be Santa? I already have the beard. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. I don't have a Santa beard. And so we made such the right decision, because I have the perfect elf beard. It's just like the red with the green. It goes so well.
Yeah, it looks legit.
So these lights can do a lot of different things. I can make them stable. I think this is the best one. Is it crazy on your eyes?
No, I like it.
It's perfect. I think so too, because let's see what we got here. This is like, it's amazing. See, that's too much. Let's see.
I love the idea of this being sold as a Santa beard.
I thought that's what happened. I thought you bought that. It does look like, yeah, you just found a piece of fabric. It's like, is this
technically this is Christmas tree lining, like the bottom part that you're supposed to put a Christmas tree on.
Oh,
like the little carpet. It was next to the hats. I'm like, this is the only white beard type of thing.
And then you made it yourself. Oh, yeah, that was inventive. You are a true artist.
What I should have done, though, since the hat cost the same as the fabric, is I should have just bought another Santa hat and then took the white scruffy part and made that into a beard.
Oh, man. Well, you're going to probably regret that for the rest of your life.
I don't know. There's something really good about a really bad beard.
It is pretty awesome. I like the way that it was. You trying to fix it is only making it look more like paper towel than it already does. So this is off, which actually doesn't look bad because you can see the color of the lights. But this is pretty cool because you get a little bit of both. This is I marvel at how I don't know if it's just because I was a kid and my parents were thrifty and which is the right way to go. You don't just give a kid like it's endless. We're like all humans are bottomless pits of want, but kids are more so.
They have a more gravitational pull for the want.
Yeah, they don't have the same impulse control. They haven't figured out that it just never ends.
Yeah, we still do that as adults. Like it's just not fair. And that was the main lesson when you're 3 years old.
Yeah, but I was just struck by. So I got this fantastic elf costume. I got a different hat, but this one is so dope because of you go with the like like no one should wear a hat like this, and that's how you know it's good.
Yes.
Like this material's real bad. And then it has little feet.
Oh, that's the best part.
On the bottom of it.
So where do your real legs, where are they supposed to hide?
Yeah, I guess you just have legs over your legs.
Yeah.
Like, if the camera was just pulled back a little bit more, then I'd have the legs are just on the desk right now, and that's kind of fun. I should have changed it a little bit for this particular episode.
But two limp noodle legs.
These lights were like less than $5 for a light necklace, battery and all. I don't understand how cheap everything is. And then like this amazing elf costume was $35.
Nice.
Hat, you get all this other, I mean, get to wear it to parties and stuff like that. And I feel very like you can just go into a costume store and just get whatever you want for. Like I had a wizard costume that I wore around forever that was fantastic. It was like $45.
Nice. Cane included?
I think I got a cane. I got it. Maybe. Did it have a scepter? I know that I had a scepter with it. That was a piece of shit, but I got one. It might have been extra. But
I'm a fan of the accessory. I think every costume should have at least a little accessory that comes with it.
Yeah. And then there's, is that just an orange hoodie that you have?
It's red. A red one. It must look different here outside of the North Pole.
That's what the problem is. It's the North Pole. I did some exceptionally cursory research into. I don't think we're going to talk much about the history and origin story of various Christmas traditions, just because I didn't have the time to look into it that much. But one of the things is, I mean, we're gonna be doing this for a while. We can do that next year. I didn't even have the idea to do a Christmas episode till recently, but there's just too much to talk about with Christmas anyway, without listening to my lecture about how it's all bullshit, and here's the historical evidence of why that is the case.
Well, bullshit as opposed to what?
Well, just like
Santa being real or what?
It's not actually Jesus's birthday. If Jesus was a thing, it certainly wasn't Jesus.
It's
Jesus
more like March, right?
Or fall, March or fall. It's probably a time when there was herding happening, which wasn't Christmas. Though I think
most people know that now. I don't know why, or maybe not most people. Most people don't know what 2 + 2 is, and it's 4 because I'm one of the elite.
Just a replacement for winter solstice. Interesting enough, but nothing I saw was anywhere near as interesting as the origins of Halloween. When I went down that wormhole, or rabbit hole or whatever, that was absolutely fascinating. But one of the things you mentioned popped into my head when you mentioned the North Pole. Most of the modern Santa was mostly an American invention.
Coca-Cola did the image, I think.
Yeah, and it was the North Pole. Like, Santa just needed to be from somewhere, and the North Pole was just a thing that happened to be in the pop culture. Like, it had just started being explored, and there was like stories of someone made it to the North Pole, like landing on the moon or something like that. And so it was this exciting thing. And so they're like, then that's where Santa lives.
We love land. Like, we found another place with land on it that we can walk to.
I know. It's funny that like we get to a place and we're just like, yeah, we're just gonna trash all this place. We can just walk to another place.
Yeah, it is interesting thinking about it's sad to think that we would just perish on this earth and not go explore space. But it's also sad to imagine us exploring all of space and colonizing all of space and making all of the rest of the cosmos just here. Maybe half of it?
Yeah.
Let's take over half and make the other half the landfill? I don't know.
Yeah. This is just a landfill for, but I mean, the idea of getting to Mars and living in some sort of I had a biodome episode at around the start of COVID, and it was pretty fascinating, but it didn't sound great, and or practical to like ship an entire, however many billion people to a biodome.
Yeah, we would have
somewhere.
to be able to terraform it fast.
Yeah.
Or become digital beings that can not need like all the constraints that a physical body does and just like send a little like robot with our consciousness in it to other places.
Oh, that seems way more complicated than being like, I wonder if we can do a little more with the desert that we already have, or take better care of the oceans or anything like that. Would seem like it would be easier to take care of a robust planet, like just booming with life everywhere, than trying to just get life started in a void on like a moon or Mars or whatever planet. But
yeah, I think it's just an ultimate backup.
But anyway, North Pole. I guess that's where that connection was made. So
what a strong brand. North Pole, Santa, elves, reindeer, sled. I mean, sled comes with the North Pole kind of, but chimney, cookies. Like, I'm wondering if this was all added like within the same years, or is it just accruing every year, like a little bit more? Like maybe cookies and milk wasn't around till 1962, and then the reindeer wasn't around till like 1920 or something.
Yeah, I don't totally know some of those things, but a lot of it was thousands of years. A lot of it was just winter solstice with what was it? It was like a German and
Christoph Kringle.
In another region, they would. There's the thinking is that Odin was actually the first inspiration, because winter solstice you'd have the Yuletide, where so it was just kind of much like when we talked about in Halloween. It was this seasonal change where everything needs to be harvested, and now this is when people are really starting to think about death, because winter is coming, and that's when the majority of death and at least suffering is going to happen. Winter was just so brutal for so many people for so long. It's kind of unimaginable, even to think about like my grandparents having ice houses and stuff, like they would just fill a huge warehouse with enormous blocks of ice, and then you'd just go and buy a chunk of ice to stick in a like large cooler, non-electric freezer or whatever of the time, to keep your stuff
just ice
refrigerated. Just ice.
Your freezer was just ice, and then it like expires.
And that was such an advance compared to what Eskimos or hunter gatherers or whatever else we're having to deal with through so much of our history. It's amazing. But I guess so then winter solstice was around the time it seems like it was just kind of around the time when it stopped making sense to feed some of the livestock
because they're gonna die.
Yeah, because it was like around the time where you're going to be butchering them anyway, and so now you're just paying for feeding them or whatever, and so as long as there's
no last
offspring
meal even. You think you'd give them a last meal?
No,
you get no meal.
So they would. That was a big part of it. Was they would slaughter a bunch of their livestock around that time. So it was already rough, and then it was kind of like, the midway point of getting through, the brutal time of year. But then you'd have this big slaughter, and you'd have all this meat, and so you'd have these festivals. And the Yule log, you'd go down and just... So one interesting thing is the evergreen trees they're the only tree that stays alive all year round.
Which trees are those?
Probably not the only...
Those aren't pine, are they?
Yeah, like pine trees.
Oh, pine trees are evergreen?
Yeah. And so that's the kind of origin of the Christmas tree. It was the symbol of life when everything else was dead. The leaves were off of everything else, and where food was in short supply. And
what's funny is I've never noticed that pine trees were evergreen, and I grew up around pine trees, like from age 0 to like 12. I was around them all the time. There was a huge one in our backyard, but like till you said that, I was like, oh yeah, it never did do the whole die in the winter thing, did it?
Yeah. So it's the sign of life in the winter. So they'd chop down like a huge one, get like the biggest log that they could, and then they'd kind of burn it in this ritual over days. I forget how long. I think it was like 2 weeks or so. Maybe not quite that, but so then there's a lot of myth and lore, like the number of sparks in the fire was the amount of
presents you
livestock
get,
or whatever else that you were going to get, the bounty that would predict the bounty of the harvest. So you'd want to get a large log because that would have more sparks. So that more sparks would mean a bigger harvest and more food next year. And I wonder, I'm sure throughout history, there were a lot of people that were like, I hope there's enough sparks because this were, and then a lot of other people that were like, this is bullshit, right? It's just like a fun thing that we do.
Shut up. We're trying to get this thing off the ground. We need to be in malls by 1982. So do you think the sparks represent the Christmas tree lights? Like the lights are a mutation of what the sparks of the log was?
Well, maybe, but the ornaments were, this is everything was, so before, this is before electricity, so candlelight was a big thing around that time, and so I think you'd have decorative candlelight, but...
So dangerous. Let's take a dead, dry tree and put candles on it.
At least if you're cutting down a live tree, it's going to be quite a bit more fire resistant than one that's been dead and drying for a while. It does take a long time to season wood. I don't know if you've ever had a fireplace.
Oh yeah.
It's
making fire when you want to make it
isn't properly seasoned.
Yeah, when you want to make fire, it's impossible. When you don't want something to be on fire, like you accidentally, like an ash falls in the trash can's like, come on, stop setting the whole place on fire. But I remember, last time we were at an Airbnb with a fireplace, it took us like 40 minutes to get it going. With gasoline.
Just do the easy route. You just those fire starters that you can get at. They're at a lot of gas stations, but they're definitely at like a Home Depot or whatever. Those little bricks are incredible. It's cheating for sure if you're like trying to rough it when you're camping and do the thing and make it a whole production. But it's the easiest thing in the world. If you just throw one of those, like you can't not have a fire happen.
Yeah. I'll cheat at everything except relationships and games. Everything else, though, I'll cheat. Like, oh, it's cheating to cook this faster to get the fire going. Let's cheat it up.
Yeah.
But games and relationships, no.
I'm a real stickler for games and playing board games by the rules, not just by the rules, but understanding the rules and understanding why they're the rules and why they make logical sense. And like sometimes there's games that are good and then they'll add an expansion, and because the expansion was added after the fact, it's not, it would have been a little bit different if it would have all been created at the same time from the start. And so there'll be like an element, like one card that's kind of broken in a way. And it's a fun, like, I really enjoy analyzing that and having conversations about like how could the rules of this game be better to make more sense.
Yeah, because it's not even about winning. It's not about like, no, we got to play by the rules so it's at my advantage. It's like, no, let's actually get it. And not even when you're playing with people, but playing a solo video game, like looking up the answer to a puzzle, that's cheating.
Yeah.
So like no cheating there.
Yeah. And yeah, I like to be able to understand the logic of it and just how it works and why, and finding new strategies. So yeah, I'll get irritated if people like use strategies that make no sense, that show like a lack of understanding about how the game works or is played. I have to like catch myself because I'll get irritated. But was something that I have no tolerance for is if someone cheats in a board game, I generally just assume they're a bad person.
Yeah, because you're doing it for nothing.
Like
a fake interaction.
Doing?
Maybe
it's
for
so
poker,
crazy.
But then if you get caught, then they throw you out.
Oh yeah, if you're playing poker for money and you're playing strange, but I'm talking you're getting together with a couple friends to play some board game, and then I cheat during that board.
There's a game that encourages cheating. They've like integrated it into part of the rule set where
that's.
I forget what it's called.
Not cheating.
Yeah, no, they found a way to make it fun where you can technically steal other people's cards or lie or stuff like that. But there's some mechanic where you can also get caught, and if you get caught, then it's over. But if you're not caught, then it's like, yeah, I just stole your money while you were sneezing or something.
Yeah, it's like we'll play code names a lot if people are on Patreon. And you see a post for my board game night. We often play this game, Codenames. It's a word association game. You give a one-word clue to cover as many of these 25 cards that are laid out in front of everybody. The clue giver sees what cards are your team's, and the clue guessers have to guess what cards are their team's cards based on the clue giver's clue. And some people, so you go like sky for 3 because 3 of the words are associated with sky in some way. You're hoping that they make the same association you did. And once in a while, someone will be like K for 4 because 4 of their words start with the letter K. And it specifically says in the rule books you can't say stuff like that, but it's not a rule that I even have to tell people because it's a good, if you say some shit like that, it's like, oh, I just don't like you.
Yeah.
Like that's a good
Or if you made
test.
up a word and combined all the 4 words into one.
Yeah, just play the fucking game the way that it's meant to be played. Everyone will have a lot more fun, I assure you.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of trying to win at this. But yeah, that's a funny thing. I hope we make a board game one day. It's a weird thing that I'm. It's like I don't know where to start, and I'm intimidated by the prospect of it. But my buddy Grant Lyon, who I introduced to board games, he never
even played Monopoly.
Well, in his adult life.
Oh, okay.
He had never played a board game since he was a kid. And he made this party game. I actually haven't played it because it came out just before COVID, which is a rough time to have a party game come out.
Kiss the Grant, the party game.
Give mouth to mouth to people is the game that I invented right before COVID.
Respiratory system twister.
And it's a game called Curmudgeon. Well, I've no idea how successful it was because of COVID or whatever, but it's impressive looking. I still haven't played it. And he has another one almost done. And then he has another one that he's pitching to like a big board game manufacturer, and he has a board game podcast now and all these things. And like, how hard is it to actually make a game? You've made app games and stuff,
but that's
right?
solo. Making a 2 or more player game that's balanced and that can't be exploited easily or get tired of easily, that seems like a challenge. Except for if you were to just use another mechanic as a template and just like tweak it, which most people probably do that rather than start from zero. But I don't know.
Well, yeah, you just kind of combine the mechanics that you like from other games and combine them in a novel way. And
starting from zero is impossible. Like, you need to have some sort of ambition, or like, oh, I'm inspired by this this river journey we took when we were riding on tubes, and wouldn't it be fun to capture riding tubes on the river in a board game form or some like stupid story like that? Then it would be easy. But if you're just sitting in a blank room and it's like, how do we have fun using cards, dice, and a rule book?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is, even though we weren't planning this is coming out. We decided to put this out early in December, since it's just all of December is kind of the holiday season, and there's other holidays outside of Christmas in particular. And I'm trying to get more people into board gaming generally. I love it so much because it's, especially if you don't drink, which I do, but if you don't drink, it's hard to find it, especially at certain ages. It's hard to find a way to get people to get together that isn't just, let's go to a bar or whatever. And it's what I really like about board gaming is it's a way to, like the dead air in a normal conversation isn't dead air if you're playing a board game. So if you're playing a board game, you can stop and break off into a conversation whenever anyone has something interesting to say or whatever.
Oh, it's my turn? Oh, sorry. I was just crazy about this conversation.
But you don't ever have to like feel the need to force conversation when you're playing board games.
Yeah.
You can just concentrate on the game. And so I think they're awesome gifts for people. I think they're making a huge comeback in terms of actual adults playing them. And so they're good gifts. So I was wondering what's a couple of your favorite board games?
Code
especially
names,
for like
Code
beginners.
Words, Pictures, Resistance. Haven't played Risk in a while, but I want to throw Risk up there.
Risk is good. Risk is good. I haven't
Ink and
played that in a long
Gold.
time.
Istanbul. I've got some beard in my mouth. But this will just make for more interesting conversation, because I'll have to articulate words using a different strategy than I normally do. It's not coming out.
Different strategy.
I gotta just swallow the cotton and just get over it. Let's see. What did I name? I named Resistance. I named Codename Pictures. Anomia is fun. It's a
I've
card.
never played Anomia.
I'm not going to say
Codenames-
chess. Chess is like too big and too of a. Chess isn't even a board game. Chess is chess.
Chess is chess, and it's just one-on-one as well, which is fine if
I like stuff that's skill based and easy to learn, and it's okay if there's a little luck involved, but if it's just a dice rolling game, that gets boring pretty quickly. So a lot of our favorites, or maybe not favorites, but the ones we knew in the 80s and 90s, like Game of Life, Story, Trouble, Sorry, the American version of the Canadian one, Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. Other than that, those ones are mainly just you pop the Pop-O-Matic Trouble or you roll the dice, and that's it. You can't really employ some strategy, but Stratego.
Codenames is almost no luck whatsoever. I mean, there's a little bit of luck involved here and there, but because you can have a lucky guess that wasn't what your clue giver intended you to guess.
Yeah.
But it's the rules are really simple, and it's a very cerebral game. I know comics always like it because comics like word association stuff and have kind of they just take to it pretty easily.
Yeah, your personality can shine through, and you can also use it to say what you know about other people's personality. Like the hints you give will speak something to what you know about them or what shared information you think you have.
Yeah, you can get to know people a little bit. It's an easy entry point. I've played with like young cousins of mine that are like, you know, I think as young as like 10 years old, and I've played with like my grandma, who I don't think has ever learned a new game in her adult life, and I've played with board game geeks. I've played with people that haven't played board games ever, and it seems so universally appealing. That's why I always played at board game night. But I like the game Pandemic, not just because we're in one. I loved it beforehand because there's a bunch of good expansions for it if you dig it. And although it is a bit difficult to learn if you're on your own, as long as one person knows how to play, it's a cooperative game, so they can help everyone else play until everyone is up to speed, which generally just takes like one game, and you have a sense of it.
Yeah,
but so many cooperative games, it's like, yeah, but with a cooperative game, you get like a whole spiel of what all the rules are, and then you're just kind of, okay, I guess I'll play this card, and no one can really help you. Or a competitive game, but a cooperative game, everyone can help one another. I like that. I like small games that travel easy. Hanabi is another cooperative game.
Hanabi's fun. One-on-one co-op or more.
Yeah, or more. And I have almost lost 2 friends over over
That's the
Hanabi.
best part about board games is not the cards or the colors or the winning or the bonding. It's going at it and almost ruining friendships. And the people that can separate your board game personality from your real life personality, they're solid. But you shouldn't take it outside of outside the mat.
Yeah,
keep it on the mat.
Sure.
Keep it in the ring. Keep it on the court.
You have everyone can see your cards but you, and they're trying to clue you in to what your cards are, and everyone's trying to clue each other into what their cards are, and you got to like remember the clues and remember what cards they were for, and then there's things that you can imply that have like higher levels of sophistication, but the logic will make sense, so people should be able to make an inference about what cards they have based on a clue, but it's not necessarily obvious, and it can be so frustrating. Sometimes it's one of those, it's the curse of knowledge, the bias of the curse of knowledge really comes out. It's obvious to you and like, how doesn't this person understand
it's my dignity clue? Luann, don't you recognize dignity when you see it? Yeah, it's like charades with or Pictionary. I wonder what the categories are. I'm sure there's a really helpful infographic showing what the categories of all games are. So you've got like your charades, Pictionary, trying to communicate knowledge with limited bandwidth type of game. You've got your hidden role game where you're the secret Hitler, the secret werewolf, the secret murderer, the secret something where you know you're bad, but nobody knows who the bad one is. And then you're trying to sneak in.
Yeah.
And then you've got like conquer all using the money system and trading sort of stuff. There's so many fun categories, and some people think of board games as like, I don't like dice, I don't want a card, I don't want a little car where I collect children. Like, that's stupid. I want to just stand by the fence and drink beers and complain about my wife. It's like, come on, let's play the secret hidden role game. Maybe you can vent some frustration you've got built up there, buddy.
I'm trying to think of, there's this, is it Telestrations? Yeah. Telestrations
is that a Pictionary
fun.
style?
Yeah, you draw and then pass your drawing to the next person, and then they guess. Like you get a card like Santa, and then
what a coincidence!
You try to draw Santa, and then you pass your drawing to the next person. You're hopefully playing with like 8 people, and then they look at your drawing. And then they guess at what they think your drawing is. So then they write the word like elf, because they're just like, so it's a game of telephone essentially.
Oh yeah,
is what it ends up
Pictionary
being.
telephone, yeah.
And then the next person, instead of seeing elf, reads it as Alf, the character from the 80s sitcom. It tries to draw this Muppet, and then the next person guesses that it's Snuffleupagus, and so on. And so the end result is like, if you're good and you're lucky, sometimes you get, it's the exact same thing that you started with, but a lot of the fun is in the ridiculous outcomes of what got lost in translation.
Yeah, and especially where you can see the progression of the initial word and where it ended up and where it went wrong. Normally one person is responsible for where it went horribly wrong.
Yeah. I used to do board game nights at the Bro House in LA, where we would have like 30 comics over. And I always liked when once in a while someone wouldn't get, I would never tell someone this when I was giving the instructions, because I just wanted to see if someone would make this mistake where people wouldn't put it together that the picture is based on a word that's off of a card. So it's not just a made up concept. So like someone was once like 18 dicks on a wheel, like is what they thought, because it was like a pirate ship wheel or something like that. It's like, well, you
I just realized
that
that's what it looks like.
You would need a card that says 18 dicks on a wheel. That's what you're guessing, is that there's a card. They just wouldn't like get that aspect of it. And then that's when things really go off the rails, because then the next person has to draw that.
Yeah.
And then I like, this is the board game episode now. These are all great Christmas gifts, if you ask me. I'll just name a couple more.
What if we didn't mention Christmas once, but we still had the outfits, so it's like we still had to make it the Christmas episode?
There's, I mean, this is what we do. We go in with a plan, but we don't stick to it ever.
No, just like our lives.
Then if you're playing with more than, it depends on how many people you have. Like there's this game Machi Koro I bought for Steve and Banana recently. They're digging that. That's a really good, because that mechanism is is like a
tile building.
Builder. But
Great artwork too, if I'm thinking of the right one.
I don't think you're thinking of the right one.
Bad artwork? Oh.
Yeah. A good artwork game is Dixit. Instead of Codenames Pictures, get Dixit instead.
Get the 18 on a wheel version.
Yeah.
You got to sit on all 18 on the wheel.
There's speaking of sexual euphemisms, there's a game called Bang. It's actually an Old West game where everyone's cowboys. And it's so much fun because there's like between 6 and 8 people is great. Everyone knows who the sheriff is, but everyone has a different role. And it's one of the few games that, depending on what your role card is, like whether you're a deputy or an outlaw or a renegade, your objective of the game is different. So everyone's playing toward a different end, a different objective. And you get to lie, other than if you're the sheriff, because everyone knows you're the sheriff, but you get to lie about who you are. So if the sheriff's turn, you can like act like you're the deputy so that they won't shoot you. And then if it's someone else's turn, you can act like you're an outlaw or something like that. Anyway.
And people know how many bullets you have. I think that's a main part of it.
Yeah.
So if you're out of bullets, like in the movies, like I know you shot 3 times and I know that model of gun only carries 3 bullets. Yeah. So what's it going to be?
And the dice game's really fantastic. So yeah, there's some board games. If you're looking for Christmas gifts, not the easiest thing in the world buying Christmas gifts. One of the first ever Here We Are episodes that I did, it was about gift giving research. And the main thing is, if someone asks for something for Christmas, just get them the thing that they asked for. Way too many people are like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be really clever and inventive and, make you something myself, or like think of a thing that's precise, well intended, but think about it like like a wedding registry is a very good example of this. You ask for like
plates, and you get macaroni art of you and your husband.
Yeah, it's like we're a scared young couple getting our first home and trying to like get a little bit of a help after spending all this money on a wedding. We actually needed plates. We don't need the fucking macaroni thing.
But most of the time people don't even list what they want, or what they want is too expensive to ask for, or they already bought it so I think I'm one of those people too. I'm one of those people that's difficult to shop for, but I always try to communicate that don't shop for me, but that doesn't work though. So how do you truly communicate that, like, I really don't need anything? Actually, I figured it out this year and part of last year. Socks. I do want socks now. And then asking for socks, very easy to get them.
I didn't get into, my younger brother actually got me into the like fancy, like, socks with various designs and stuff on them.
You ever try wearing different designs on each foot? That's what I call wild times.
That's a very creative name for that. Did you intentionally wear 2 different socks? I call it wild times, actually. Yes, I did. I call it wild times.
You can write that down. You can use it. Just tell people I came up with it. But yeah, you can use it. You can spread it. Big fan of spreading.
They intentionally do that sometimes these days, and that is kind of because they're different, but they pair well together. So I have a few pairs like that. I thought of a good Christmas gift. So this is the sort of thing I like. There's I like fancy like writing utensils. Anytime
calligraphy pens.
No, but
Metallic Sharpies?
well, now I use markers mostly. But I do like metallic Sharpies are pretty nice, but they bleed through. They're a little much.
The brand Sharpie actually is terrible at those metallic pens, but there's some good ones.
Yeah. I like this Uniball Jetstream pen. It's not super fancy. It's a little higher end, I guess, if you're just in like a Target or something, and as far as pens go, and they're not the easiest to find, but they don't smear and they write well. Some people don't think they write smooth enough, but I'm particular. And now I've found that markers are, even though my hand's usually like covered in marker, I like that. But I found a notebook, Leuchtturm, Leuchtturm.
Already deleted it.
Leuchtturm 1917. And their thing is that all of the pages in there, it's a fine quality notebook anyway, but all of their pages are numbered, and then there's a blank table of contents in the
for the organizational fellows.
Because otherwise it's just, I'm lost. I'll write 3 pages on this and then 3 pages on that. And sometimes I don't pick up a notebook for a week or two, and then I'll just open it up and start writing something without even looking at the last thing that I wrote. And so it very much helps. The only flaw
is that you have to write it in the table of contents. Whereas we're used to the computer where it's indexable and you can search by, even an incorrect search term might bring it up. But
that's true. I mean, that's the huge advantage with computers, because in terms of what gets my brain working, the regular old pad to pen to pad, whatever is by far, I just write higher quality material and thoughts and everything else. It's
a meditation too, using different styles of a writing utensil on different kinds of paper. It can unlock things that you wouldn't have gotten to on the Notes app, on the Word document, on the Google Drive, on the any sort of screen thing. It's a different ball game.
It is kind of, when I think about people using typewriters, it's just like, man, how did they? I guess you just write it out on paper over and over again and make notes and then start typing it from the beginning, knowing exactly what you're going to type.
Or we were just better at it, the way that studio musicians would get things done in one take. Like they would just roll tape and then they would play the song all together in a room and be like, great, no mistakes on that one. And now good luck finding someone that can play without a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes now. Everyone goes back and deletes the mistake and speeds this up and rearranges it. And you can take infinite takes. And maybe back in the typewriter days, they were just like, you had to be good at one take thought to typing. Otherwise, you just weren't a writer. You weren't
that's
cut out
interesting.
For it.
There is kind of like this it's not called this, but I'm just going to call it that.
Wild times.
It's called Wild Times. There's this like guardrails hypothesis. It actually might be called that, but the idea that actually putting guardrails in can, in certain circumstances, this is a metaphor, in circumstances, make people drive faster, and because they have that
certainty,
that protection of the guardrail. But then because they're driving faster, they're in at least as much danger as they were without guardrails.
You talking about the big cement medians?
Like a guardrail over a cliff.
Oh, okay.
Like you're going around it. You're going around a turn, and there's a guardrail.
Oh, so and you mean like you would still, you'd still go over it, but
yeah, because you're driving faster, because you have the safety net. There's something about having the safety net that
like doing a stand-up set.
You not have
when you have your notes there, you're like, I can't do it by memory. But if you force yourself to go up without a notebook or your phone, it's like, well, it's just me versus whatever I can produce right now.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of what you were getting at with the typewriter and studio storage in our brains. Just like, why can't we do that anymore? Don't have to anymore. Simply don't have to.
Why can't we swing from trees? Like even the fittest human being, like they can kind of swing from trees, but not the way a normal like chimp can do it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, use it or lose it.
Yeah.
So yeah, back to do you want a little more Christmas origin, or do you just want to talk about holidays? We'll do a little I don't even have that much more origin. So it was like the way that it's represented in a few like documentaries and stuff and a few things that I read, it made it seem like this Yuletide time was very rambunctious. Like it was a real party. It was really people blowing off steam. You've been cooped up for a long time. You get to have a feast. There's alcohol. And it was this time of year where all of the social norms were kind of intentionally upended. So the masters would like dress as the servants, and the servants would boss around the masters and stuff like that. And then there was just I was thinking when I was looking through this about the idea of we talked about this before, and I tried to look it up, and when I looked it up, it seemed like I was debunking what I was saying, but I still am not sure that it was always the case. That I think that the best time to maybe get pregnant would have been around that time.
During Christmas?
Yeah.
Just because you're born in the summer or what? Or born in end of summer?
Or even before. I think anytime the kind of between Halloween and Christmas, because you're hunkered down anyway, and then it's not, the early pregnancy isn't taking on that many more resources. And then
why was it debunked? Or why did you think you debunked it by looking it up?
I forget. We did an episode and I was trying to look it up, and just like my little bit of Googling and trying to see what month people were born the most in our modern era, it didn't seem like there was a significant difference. But that might have been worldwide too, which
because different climates. Yeah,
there's different climates, so who knows?
You'd think it would favor one month, just by nature of either people are getting it on more in the summer or getting it on more in the winter, but just completely even, it seems weird. But
it would seem weird. Everything else has a mating season, and yeah, we have all of this flexibility, but you would think there would still be a little bit, you would see some differences. You would see some trends going on there. And it seemed like who knows how these historical records were kept and how much judgment was placed by the people writing these historical records. Probably the type of person that sat down to write historical records back then was maybe not the funnest person in the world, and maybe just like, they're out of control in there and partying and having sex and everything's upended. And so who knows how much you can actually trust that stuff. But it seems like there was a lot of mating ritual behavior going on, kind of like the Halloween and the bobbing for apples to determine who your husband was going to be.
There's sexiness in every holiday, and then we take it away, but we also bring it back.
Speaking of apples too, they used to use apples to decorate trees. Those eventually became ornaments. And I'm not sure why that was, because I must have a misunderstanding of the evolution of apples because I thought that apples weren't really worth eating, and only worth fermenting until not too like a few hundred years ago. And we're talking about traditions thousands of years old. So perhaps that's wrong, and apples
Maybe
were worth
acorns.
eating earlier. What's up?
Maybe it's acorns or pine cones.
Yeah, I don't know. But regardless, there's probably addressing your question of if all the reindeers and all of these things all happened at once, maybe maybe it happened over a long period of time, because it did seem to so it kind of got, once Christians moved in, at first it was the same thing as Halloween, where they're like, yeah, we'll let you keep your traditions. Yeah, as long as you throw a little Jesus in there, you can keep your traditions. And then over time, they're like, yeah, you got to get rid of that tradition.
And then they got what they dealt, in that now the Jesus then got taken back out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still kind of there, but come on, Santa. It's about Santa, and the even saying that it's overly commercial argument is kind of integrated within it. Like, no one even cares. It's like, yeah, we know, but still, it's going to keep going.
Actually, that was one of the takeaways that I found to be the most interesting about Christmas, was that winter solstice, Yuletide, it was about debauchery and like consumption from, and just partying from the onset. And yes, there was like Odin would.
Is Odin and Zeus the same?
Through the sky? I don't think so.
I mean, Odin is Norse and Zeus is Greek, but I'm just trying to figure out what it parallels as. I think Odin is Norse, but anyway.
I have no fucking clue. I'm sure I'm spreading all sorts of bad information, but there's speculation that was the early Santa. There was a day of the year where he would go through the sky and you couldn't look, but he would judge people for being good or bad.
Nice.
And then there's also, you've heard the Amanita Muscaria.
Yeah, the red mushroom with the white dots on it that make you feel Christmassy.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, the idea is that there's these Siberian reindeer herders. So this never came up in any of the just light research that I was doing, other than I've heard from other people talking about it. But reindeer herders, there was shaman that would store up these mushrooms, and then they would drop them off during winter solstice for people as to basically trip. And when the shamans tripped, they would ring bells. They would sit on like a reindeer pelt and ring bells, and it was like kind of like they're flying or whatever.
Cool.
And if reindeer would eat them, it kind of would look like they had a red nose or whatever. And I think reindeer would eat them and jump up really high like they were flying. And as the story goes, they would pack up these mushrooms in a sack and take a sleigh around to all of and because it was winter, oftentimes the doors would be like snowed in. And so they would drop them in through the chimney, because that's all that they could get to. So that was the gifts that they would drop through the chimney.
That's a lot of it.
That's a lot of it. And it's a very exciting story. The older I get, the more I hear stories like that from the psychedelic community. I'm like, yeah, that sounds a little too fun. And my guess is it's bullshit. I've been burned too many times by stories like that when I like find out the truth of it. Like, actually, that was kind of made up.
Wait, the dropping it through the chimney part?
like, I don't know. I haven't looked into just generally.
It makes sense if you look at it from the long, like, it's not like they did that all at once, but over the thousands of years, like maybe a few times it happened and then it became part of the lore, even if only like a couple of people were dropping the mushrooms down the chimney, but then they told their kids about it and their kids, and then it just became part of the universe.
Yeah. There's also, I do question it a little bit because there's just such a tendency in the psychedelic community to be like, these are sacred and they've been doing this, and what you do is you go and you do this traditional practice, and like actual anthropologists that I've talked to that go and study tribes and Peru or whatever, it's like, it's not like they don't do it. It's just not as regular as you would be led to believe. And they kind of project whatever, like people come to them for help and they just kind of are the mirrors and like give people what they want, and they're making money off of it or whatever as well. And so they're just kind of like building a story around it more than is actually in line with reality. That seems to be the case quite a bit. And
that one sounds real though.
Yeah,
just because none of it sounds that crazy, because like they're taking the mushroom and then it seems like the reindeer are flying and they.
Yeah, I should look into it. I hope it's true.
Either way, we'll never really know.
Yeah, and that's not me like shitting on people that believe that stuff about psych. It's just that, as far as I'm concerned, psychedelics speak for themselves. They have good, they have their amazing experiences that you can have, and I think the science bears out in the end, and it doesn't really, I think, like embellishing past stories and everything and creating lore around them is unnecessary. It's like, you don't really need lore around a self-driving car. It's like, it speaks for itself. It's fucking awesome.
Well, it was developed mainly by George Hotz and a little bit by Lex Friedman on this one car, and then who else is working on it? I don't know. Elon, I guess.
But yeah. So that's cool if it's true, for sure. But I didn't see that in any of my like little bit of research that I did, which wasn't enough. But it was one of the interesting things was that this Christmas almost went away. So Christianity kind of tried to co-opt this winter solstice, or they did co-opt the winter solstice, and then they tried to make it. Basically, they tried to like control it more, and which I don't even think a lot of that stuff's about power always. I think it's just a lot of it is you're in charge. You think you know what's best for people, and there's a world in which it makes sense for you not to be like drinking and causing a bunch of ruckus and like having loose sex or whatever else. And it's especially convenient that you don't have to follow any of the shit that you're prescribing on others, like you do it yourself and you're like, well, yeah, sure, I do it a little bit, but like everybody else shouldn't be doing this stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty natural part of the human condition. And then it's just you give anyone enough power and authority, and that's just sort of a natural expression of how they end up like commanding people.
Yeah, because they think they're helping. They're it's like in the Handmaid's Tale where the guy says better isn't always better for everyone. I don't know if that makes sense, but just they're going to make the world a better place, but they recognize that like, okay, it's going to be better for this section, but maybe these small sections here will have to eat it a little bit because what they're doing
can't
isn't
argue with
good.
our birth rates. That's a fucking great show, by the way.
Handmaid's Tale? Yeah, we stopped around season 4 or something. I think it's good, but you kind of get tired of it after a while.
Yeah, maybe I don't think I've seen past that either.
I mean, there's only so many times you can watch June stay behind. Like, no, I'm staying behind until every last person is free. Like, okay, they're just renewing it for another season. And the original book is like 80 pages long.
It's fun to notice stuff like that also fucking ruins things, for you too. When you see it, I was watching John Adams on HBO. It's considered one of the best HBO shows of all time, or mini series anyway.
Sounds exciting. John Adams.
It's, I know fucking nothing about modern history, which probably comes through in episodes like this. It's just not something that I gravitate towards. I like the long depth of evolution and comparing it to and thinking about how it expresses itself in our modern world. But I don't know much about like American history or modern history or this or that war.
Yeah, you don't know how much of a blip it is. And if you look at the long scale, you can really get an accurate picture and have a predictability model. But look at the last 20 years, it's like, I don't know. Seems like a lot of stuff's happening, but also it could be forgotten in 100 years.
We had so we started watching this John Adams, my buddy Steve Gillespie and I, he's big into history, mostly like dudes that banged a lot in history. It turns out, like, anytime he tells me a history dildo. Yeah, anytime he tells me a history lesson, I'm like, wait, is this just about some dude that bangs a lot?
So you talking Genghis Khan and Wilt Chamberlain
and Ben Franklin.
Oh, Ben Franklin. Oh yeah, Hellfire Club. He did bang a lot. It's probably why he didn't want to be president. He's too busy getting his D wet.
Who the fuck would want to be president? I had a fun tweet that I actually enjoyed the other day, which was Biden was like transferring power to Kamala while he was put under for colonoscopy, and I tweeted something to the effect of, I would get a colonoscopy every day if it could get me out of presidenting for a few hours.
Yeah, it seems like the worst.
It seems like the worst fucking job imaginable.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's had the reverence in a while either.
That's why it's like, how the fuck can you trust anyone that wants to be president, really? Because, who would, I mean, not that, listen, I don't want to do anything. So it's like, I suppose I could say this about any job, but being president seems like a special kind of nightmare.
Blood on your hands, and also blood on your hands, even if it's not your fault. It's still like your administration is represented by you.
Yeah,
it's the Biden administration, the Trump administration, even if it's like a lot of the people who are number 4, number 17 that made the call to blow up that village that was all innocent civilians. It's still, you did it because you're in charge of all those people. And you don't really get to see what they do right. Maybe every now and then, like, Obama and gay marriage or something. It's like, yeah, he did it. He granted the rights for it. But if they're doing tons of stuff right, you just really don't know unless if you're already a fan of them. I can't say what they did right, but they possibly saved the world a bunch of times. Who knows? They probably saved it from economic collapse based on some boring decisions they made. But to me, no, they just go golfing. And
all they do is just fuck it up, and some of them fuck it up worse than others, and you're voting for the person that fucks it up the least. Yeah, that's the crazy thing about pandemics. Like, we just next week we have a pandemic history episode coming out, and one of the crazy things that we don't mention in the episode is just, there's all of these ones that were actually, they caught it in time and they stopped it. And you'll never know. You'll never appreciate the pandemic that didn't happen. You'll never appreciate the sickness that you didn't get. You'll never appreciate the, like, engine on your car that would have exploded had you not like done the proper maintenance or what, you'll never appreciate those things. It's just so much more salient when the problem actually like putting out. That's why so much emphasis is on putting out fires, because that's the things that we can see. And then it's like, oh, and we have to do this. And then you can see it and then you get credit for it. Or just, even if you don't, it just needs to be done.
Isn't there, there's that Mr. Magoo cartoon where he's like loses his glasses and he's blind and he almost dies all the time. But then his dog or his cat, someone keeps saving him, but they're completely oblivious to how they save it. I think they copied the format for Animaniacs with the little girl that says like, okay, bye. And then almost is constantly getting into danger. And then the dog is just freaking out trying to save the kid.
Man, I used to love Animaniacs. I don't remember a moment of it. Were you a fan?
Oh yeah. Every episode. I would get home from school. I'd watch Animaniacs, Gargoyles, Batman, the animated series.
Yep.
Parents would get home, so then you had to shut it down for a bit and then like be a good homework person or whatever. I pretended to study. And then
I'm a good homework person.
Oh, our son is really at that homework. It's probably not a ruse at all. No, I watched so much TV. I watched so much cartoons, and if I didn't watch it, that means it was really bad. Because I was even watching stuff that someone my age had no business watching. Like, you shouldn't be a teenager and watch Newhart. And then after you see Newhart, you watch the Bob Newhart show. And you watch Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days, and just... It's probably all fine, but...
I'm gonna give a shout out to my my good friend Ken Reed. He had like a fairly dysfunctional family, so he was like just completely raised in front of a television, and that's just all he did. And he knows and he just has a mind and a retention for it, and he is just like he's really into the behind the scenes stuff and the various choices that were made, and just obsessed. And so he has this podcast that's fantastic called TV Guidance Counselor, where he has like every TV guide that was ever made, and if you're the guest on the show, you pick a TV guide, and then you go through the week, and then you pick the shows that you would want to watch, like MacGyver or whatever. And then he just riffs about those shows and all of these. Like, he just knows everything there is to know about every fucking actor. It's insane. Yeah, check out Ken Reed's TV Guidance Counselor.
Oh, and maybe not that good, but I bet I would be a good challenge. A good
guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just something about it, like just because there wasn't, or internet was slow and there was only one computer. So if someone else was using the computer, then you couldn't use it. So just TV was such an escape, and you just found the best thing that was on one of those 30 channels.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we did have video games. It must have been so much more of a necessity to just like, well, there's only two things on TV. We'll watch one of the two things, and that's you better enjoy it.
And the editing was so less tight. The way that stuff is always trying to keep your attention now, and before they just took for granted your attention, like, well, we're the only thing on TV, so we can. Coming up next to the stage is a fine young comedian. Please give it up for Rob Reiner, or I don't know, he's not a comedian, damn it, he's a director. But anyway, they would just the time it would take for someone to get up from their seat, walk to the stage, like they would just keep all that in. And I watched this episode of the Ed Sullivan Show where Colonel Sanders was on, and he just brought buckets of chicken, like the actual Colonel Sanders. And 15 minutes of the episode was the stagehands just handing chicken to the audience. And they weren't even making jokes at the desk. They're just like, yep, good. Passing out some of that finger looking good chicken. And it was just a normal episode of TV.
Wow.
Now you've got carpool karaoke, and now the kids from Stranger Things are going to come and, climb up on my back and like yell insults at me. And now they're going to, Reggie Watts is going to call his mother and then hang up on her. And now it's just,
there's a famous thing. It was the first realization. I wonder if you'll know what I'm talking about. It was this editing realization where in one of the first TV, this like silent film and stuff, they were like, what if, like, when he gets out of the car, what if instead of him like walking up to the door, what if we just cut to him walking in? And be like, well, how will they know that he, like, what transpired?
My favorite,
a genius was like, they'll know. I think they'll actually know. Like, connect the dots and seamlessly put together the story. Sorry.
My favorite version of an editing decision, I forget which show it was, but basically they're ramping up for this court scene where the woman is going to gain or lose custody of her kid. And then you're like, oh, looks like I'm going to have to deal with a courtroom scene for 45 minutes. And then they just cut straight to the end where they're like crying and hugging. Like you don't even see a judge. I'm like, that's brilliant. You sense that the viewer did not want to see a courtroom drama and you just keep the story moving. Yeah. And then on the opposite end of that spectrum, I watched some movie where every time someone made a phone call, you watched them pick up the phone and dial and go hello and then hey, it's blank, blah, blah, blah. Just like cut all that out. We don't want to see people making phone calls, making FaceTimes. 45 minutes of them dialing.
It's interesting. It's like with VR and everything to figure out what stimulus is important for a story, for your consciousness to tell a story where there's not where you're suspending disbelief, where you're fully immersed, and it's not necessarily the quality of the graphics. Like you can be looking at kind of this stupid cartoon doll looking thing and immerse yourself in it. It's all these other factors. And I don't know if I told you this one, the University of Iowa, they have the world's biggest VR lab. And the last episode I did with them, it just stuck in my mind, that they did this study where they'd put a VR on people and then they'd have a camera in the back of their head. And then in the VR, their avatar is facing that way behind them with like, and they can look down and like, they see their body or whatever is behind them. And then
so their camera floats behind them so that they're seeing themselves?
Yeah, they're like flipped around basically.
But
like
they don't see themselves though, right?
They see an artificial body like flipped around in front of them, I believe. I'm probably screwing up.
Like eyes on the back of your head?
Yeah, like eyes on the back of your head. And if you so I think you just have to have someone standing, I imagine. And now you have eyes on the back of your head, but in the VR thing, you're oriented as far as you're not used to having eyes in the back of your head. So that's forward to you. And then they have someone approach that then is like represented as in the VR. And then they come and they touch you on your back right shoulder. But in your VR, that it's your front right shoulder is what it looks like from the eyes in the back of your head. And you feel it on your front right shoulder. That's where people feel it.
You feel it on the side that the eyes are telling you?
The eyes are telling you.
So you listen to your eyes more than you listen to your actual touch. Interesting.
Yeah.
Most of the time or all the time?
I don't know. I should have asked more about that because I was just, however he explained it, I was just so blown away by it. I should have asked follow-up questions.
There's going to be so many cool therapies
2 years ago.
Of using that, like VR, where you can kind of project outside of yourself and maybe live part of a day while looking at yourself from a bird's eye view. So you stop. Just, I don't know, something about always being inside these bodies is like messing us up, getting in our own way.
It doesn't take much. So people that have phantom limbs, so you lose your left arm.
No.
And did you say no?
Yeah. I just had to simulate it and then adapt. And I'm like, at least it's not the right arm. Right arm's Michael Jordan. This is not even Scottie Pippen. This is Ron Carter. Still good, but.
So you lose your left arm. You still have a left arm represented in your brain. And that makes all these weird misfirings happen, which is why you have a phantom limb. And in some cases, people have like unbearable itching, like phantom itching happens on their limb, or cramps. They'll have cramps in a limb that doesn't exist, and pain is in the brain. So it feels just like a cramp in a real arm. And there's no resolution to it because you can't scratch a thing that isn't there. You can't massage a thing that isn't there.
Unless.
And so what they figured out, you're getting the foreshadowing. The very simple, just mirror box. You just set a box up and where you put your right arm out. And then there's a mirror so that it looks like you have two arms. So your right arm is reflecting off. So it looks like you have a left arm as well. And then someone just scratches your right arm for you. and you just look at the other side of it. And even that rudimentary that you don't consciously believe or buy into, that's enough to scratch the itch in your brain.
Damn.
And relieve that itch or cramp or whatever.
Optical illusions are so powerful.
Yeah. So
and that'll be $1,500 for that procedure. You see, the mirror box had to be custom fitted to your body, so it costs extra to get mirrors shaped like that.
Well, you could make your own mirror box pretty easily. So let me skip forward in Christmas to more modern times. So some of the bigger parts that influenced the modern era, because there was a lot of stuff cross-culturally happening with like various versions of Saint Nick and whatnot that I haven't looked into enough. We'll do that next year. Or maybe we'll do another Christmas episode because I wanted to talk about what your Christmas holidays and stuff were like. We haven't even gotten very far in this conversation, but what happened was when people started going to America, they were trying to distance themselves from everything that had to do with like European culture and traditions, and there was a lot of judgment about this. There's a lot of like Puritans that moved to America. Yeah, to
escape it or to become even more pure.
To become more pure.
No.
Yeah. That's where the trouble starts. And Puritans almost ended Christmas. Puritans, the hyper religious people, they were trying to get rid of Christmas because Christmas was this festive time. And there was just a period of time where people didn't know what to do with it. This is before Santa as we know it today. This was a lot more yeah, people were. This is long past the Yuletide that was well before Jesus existed, if he did, and there was uh, there was like a lot of back and forth with whether this is a time for fun or whether this is a time for solemn and prayer, and there was a lot of judgment about the elites partaking in these, big feasts, and jealousy involved in that, and not wanting to associate with that. And then, the one of the first thing, so then like modern writers that we're familiar with today, they actually saved Christmas. So this is something I didn't know, but when you watch A Christmas Carol and like Scrooge and everything else, that was actually that was a real that piece of literature was a way of saying, hey, let people have Christmas, because at the time Americans were like, we're hard workers, we don't take breaks, we work every day. And some people wanted to celebrate this thing, and they were trying to figure out, do you give people time off for this? And so books like The Christmas Carol actually revolutionized Christmas. It wasn't just some fun story about something that was already going on. Christmas probably wouldn't be what it is today if it weren't for The Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
and
neither would DuckTales.
Like that.
I like that they just took Scrooge from another story. Like, what if we took Scrooge from A Christmas Carol and made him a duck, and he had 3 nephews?
and I fucking loved that.
And what if we took Baloo from Jungle Book and had him fly a plane? There, I'm going to lunch. Get to work on that. Get to work on my new hit show with my new original characters. Oh yeah, and throw in the Daisy Duck or whatever, so that there's a girl. No,
when
not
you say
Daisy.
It like
what is her name?
Like, man, we should just write a TV show. How hard can it be? But TV's also gotten quite a bit better. And worse at the same time.
It always goes out in all directions. Rich get richer, poor get poorer, life gets easier, life gets crazier. It's the best time to be alive. It's also the worst time to be alive because, I don't know, just go watch a video from the 70s or something. It's like, oh, back then everything was, the cars are boxy and there's no computers, but also there's no computers, and they're smoking cigarettes everywhere. They're having drinks. It's a good time, and it's rough, and it sucks.
Yeah.
You you leave behind a piece of your soul, but you technologically innovate, and I don't know, maybe it's supposed to be like Queen. That. Yeah, exactly.
We're recording this before Thanksgiving, and should probably wrap up, but maybe we'll do a second one. But do you have any plans for this thing or for this Christmas?
No, or maybe I don't know. Actually,
plans, yeah.
I think we might stop in Texas for a little bit. A Texas Christmas, but that's it. And I think it's after Christmas a little.
Okay.
You're gonna be there?
I think I'm probably doing some stuff with the extended family or whatever. I don't know. Should be nice.
We missed it last year. We did a Zoom Christmas. It's weird.
Yeah. We had I made like a Zoom Christmas card to send to everybody, and it was like finding out, but that's like 10, 20 years from now or 40 years from now or whatever. Stuff like that, all of the stuff that's insanely cliche and irritating to us right now is going to be like, whoa, that I remember that was that was a wild time.
What you mean, like the Zooms and
like having
e-cards.
to do the Zooms because of the pandemic and all of that.
I already missed parts of 2020. We all do.
Yeah,
parts of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the February 29th of years. Like normally the year isn't like that, but every once in a while there's February 29th. And you're like, what? February 29th of a year? Okay. Let's just be in this wild time year.
You have any what are you getting for Christmas? Do you know? You got
socks.
I
wrote
Santa's
socks
list?
on my list. And I might want one of those controller things that you use to edit stuff. It's got like a wheel and a bunch of buttons, so it makes drawing and editing like a faster thing. Still doing some research. Just want to get a low end one. What about you? What object would you like?
Some notebooks, I think, and I think I'm going to get a steel drum.
Hell yeah!
Put it on my Christmas list. I watched a few reviews and stuff, and was like, oh, actually, for like $120, it seems like you can get a pretty damn awesome steel drum.
That's ridiculous. I thought it was like 1,000 minimum.
Well, yeah, like once you're pro, but for like a really good beginner one, yeah, you can get a really good one.
And it's all about making a bad instrument, or not even bad, but making a cheaper instrument sound good. Because if you can sound good on the cheap instrument, then once you switch to a more expensive one, you'll just be flying. And It really shows that the magic is in your hands. And I might have told this story already, but the story of Steve Vai and Eddie Van Halen came to his house and played on Steve Vai's gear, which was very crappy at the time, and settings were all wrong. And Eddie Van Halen picked it up, and he was described as, and he had the nerve to sound like himself. He had the nerve to sound like himself on my crappy gear. And then it taught him that, the magic is in your hands, not in the instrument. But nothing wrong with good instruments too.
Yeah, interesting. Cool. Well, I'll tell you what I would love for Christmas is some Patreon support, and it's a gift for yourself as well because you get all of our bonus content. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good holiday season, and do all of it. Make it merry, and don't let any
dogs out.
Don't let any dogs out.
Just kidding. You can let the dogs out. Let them out.
You think?
After all, it's Christmas. Who invented the voice? Find out next time. Who came up with that Santa voice? How come he doesn't have vocal fry? How come he doesn't stutter?
I think it was I think it was a play on like oil barons and stuff at the time, like very rich people.
Yeah.
There was like a large bearded like oil baron, and it was like imagining him giving all of his stuff away, and kind of evolved.
He's got a lot of coal to give away, so he's in energy. He's in the energy production business, the industry. He's got in
Santa
some in
wasn't
oil,
always nice.
some in coal.
When they started fussing with Santa in America to like, how can we make this profitable? How can we get people like buying stuff and festive? They made him like rotund and jolly and playful, and it's still. I always wonder how many of our belief systems are kind of these like phenotypic expressions of our genes, these mimetic things that influence culture, and these cultural transmissions that lead to the spread and survival of our genes. And it's like it's an expression of something more nuanced that's within us, and then how much of it is just like, here's a stupid lie that you can tell kids to get them to behave. And then there's probably like a little bit of both going on there. It's a species that evolves to lie to its offspring to get them to be like not so much of a pain in the ass until they're old enough to be less of a pain in the ass. Has more of a survival advantage.
Yeah.
Potentially.
And it teaches you to not trust anybody. Don't trust anyone, not even us, your parents.
I know. Santa is like, it fucked with my head a little bit. When you're like, when you were, did you pick up? So my thing is I had older friends. I just happened to, I had friends that had older brothers and such. And then it's, like friends when you're a kid are just proximity. It's like, whatever, you got whatever's on these 3 blocks. Whatever kids are around, that's who you're hanging out with. Yep. And I just happened to have a fair number of older friends. And so I kind of, I kind of felt like I got the hints of that Santa was a lie a little earlier than a lot of other people. And then there was some friends of mine that just refused to believe it till like something crazy, like 5th grade or something.
Oh,
like
wow.
that.
I think I knew at like 3 or 4, something really early.
Yeah, but I was around 3. I was definitely by 4. I don't know about 3. Definitely by 4.
But I was also told, but also like some kids believe in, maybe not at 3, but pretty early. Like, yeah, some folks are religious and some folks believe in God and Jesus, and that's okay. I mean, we don't, but we're like, just be careful with other people's beliefs. So I was always a little more careful and not to just be like, oh, you believe in God, you believe in Santa and the Easter Bunny.
That's
it's just
interesting.
Yeah, you kind of respect it, which is the ultimate, better than you stuck upness, where you don't even have the respect to be better than them.
The dogma one is a rough one. That's the one that I had. That was like, these things were not to be questioned or even asked about. Like even asking questions about like, but why would this happen? In the Bible, like, you don't ask stuff like that.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe you would have had it out of your system, and now it's like turbocharged, where you have to ask why to everything. Exactly. You're like talking to the purple psychedelic lady and you're still like, yeah, but how do I know you're not like just some little program running in the back of my head? I'm the great eternal purple lady. Yeah, but I don't know. I got some questions here. Now that I'm allowed to ask questions. I got a lot of questions, lady.
Yeah, it's true. We're all shaped by many things.
Yeah, that's good. You got to keep those questions coming. Otherwise, we don't have a show.
All right. Well, you guys are awesome. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the episode. More importantly, hope you enjoy your holidays. It's just because we aren't starving to death in the winter famine necessarily anymore, and get to be a lot cozier and don't have to worry about ritualistic sacrifices and getting us through for this period of time. It doesn't mean that this isn't an important time of year to like get blow off some steam for your mental health and everything else. So I hope you do enjoy the holidays and get to connect with friends and family and whatever else you got going on. And we will talk to you next week. So until next time,
keep on salivating, honeys. Ding.